Pali?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody's ready?
Yes.
And it's recording. I guess we can later cut the start off.
Yeah.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this today's debate on euthanasia, a topic that brings up profound ethical, moral, and legal questions. My name is Pali Valdur, and I'll be your moderator today. As mentioned, we'll be exploring euthanasia. It is a term derived from Greek meaning good death. The idea is that instead of condemning someone to a slow or undignified and painful death, euthanasia would allow the patients to experience a relatively good death. We will be examining its implications, challenges, and diverse perspectives people hold on the subject. In general, euthanasia refers to the practice of intentionally ending the life or to relieve suffering, especially in the cases of severe terminal illness or unbearable pain. The debate around euthanasia is complex. For some, it is viewed as an act of compassion. On the other side, there are those who believe that euthanasia crosses a critical ethical line. So not to elaborate more, today we'll hear that from both sides of the issue as they present their arguments for and against euthanasia. We'll explore the ethical, practical, and emotional dimensions, hoping to shed light on why it continues to spark such debate worldwide. And before we begin, I'd like to go over a few ground rules to ensure that we have a respectful and productive discussion. So each side will have a chance to present their arguments, respond to each other's points, and give closing statements. So please avoid personal attacks or fallacies, stay within your time limits, and maintain respectful conversations. And let's focus on the ideas and the reasoning behind them. I have already shared with you the agenda beforehand. However, I will still be keeping time. So with that, let's introduce the speakers. Arguing for euthanasia, we have Christian Saldivar and Paulina Canales Arredondo. And against euthanasia, we have Jana Kampman and Emilio Salcero. So each side will have now 2 minutes to do their opening statements. So let's start with the speaker in favor.
Me. Okay. Well, first, I believe euthanasia should be legal in Mexico for several reasons. The first one is because I think everyone should has the right to decide over their own life and body, especially like if the patient is passing a constant pain and with no hope of recovery. In this case, I think euthanasia isn't just about wanting to die, and I think it's more about having the right to choose how you want to face like the end of your life, because I think if someone is going through intense physical suffering, that no treatment can help them. I mean, who are we to tell them that they have to keep going or to keep fighting, And also there was a national survey in 2022 about the right to die with dignity, and 73% of Mexicans vote in favor to change the laws and allow to terminally ill people receive the assistance in ending their life if they choose so, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Christian. And now we'll hear from the opposing side.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, esteemed moderator, honorable opponents, respected audience. Today we stand before you to argue against the legalization of euthanasia, a practice that fundamentally undermines the sanctity of human life, presents grave ethical dilemmas, and opens the door to potential abuse in our healthcare system. Euthanasia, often described as a merciful end to suffering, raises significant moral and ethical concerns. The most basic principle of a just society is the protection of human life. Whether someone is old, disabled, terminally ill, or experiencing mental anguish, life retains its inherent value. Legalizing euthanasia sends a dangerous message that some lives are less valuable than others. It creates a precedent where the answer to suffering may be death rather than compassion, care, or support. Moreover, the legalization of euthanasia sets a slippery slope. What begins as a well-intentioned measure for terminally ill patients may expand to include people suffering from chronic conditions, mental health issues, or even those experiencing temporary emotional distress. In countries where euthanasia has been legalized, we've already seen calls to extend it to a broader group of people, far beyond those who are suffering from terminal diseases. But beyond the ethical and philosophical debates, there are practical concerns as well. Euthanasia opens the door for vulnerable individuals, especially the elderly, disabled, and those with mental health challenges, to be coerced or pressured into ending their lives. This isn't hypothetical. Research has shown that vulnerable people may feel they are a burden on their families or society, and as a result might make a decision that they wouldn't have made under different circumstances. Our responsibility as a society is not to make it easier to end life, but to make it easier to live, especially for those who are suffering. Advances in palliative care, hospice care, and mental health support have made it possible to manage pain, alleviate suffering, and offer dignity to those at the end of life. Instead of resorting to euthanasia, give me 10 more seconds and I'm done. Instead of resorting to euthanasia, we should be investing in these compassionate alternatives that preserve life and provide hope and care in even the most difficult circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for presenting your points. Now the proponent team will get the chance to develop their arguments more, the ones that they presented during their opening statements, but also include their rebuttal. And this is your chance to respond to the specific points raised by the other side. So you have 4 minutes for this.
So euthanasia has been deeply stigmatized over the years, but this is not a new topic. This is not something that has just arrived into the world. In fact, we can see the case of the first person in Spain, for example. His name was Ramon San Pedro, and he was in a bed for about 30 years before he could get euthanasia. And when we're talking about the dignity of life and mental health and all these other issues that could lead to a person or could make people believe that they wanna get euthanasia, we need to take into account what is dignity in life and what is to have a proper way of living. How much can you enjoy that said life? When we're talking also about mental health and people who are at risk of wanting to get euthanasia, this is not exactly the case, considering that 60% of people who have a terminal illness request euthanasia and only 11% get that treatment. However, they do go through several documents they have to fill in, several processes in which they express their need. They have different types of recommendations from their doctors who say that they are in fact going to die a painful death, and this could lead to years and years of suffering. So when we talk about euthanasia, it's important to take into account not only the dignity and not only the life itself, but the quality of it. And it's also important to take into account that people who are affected by terminal illnesses are in fact people who are elderly. However, it's a really small amount who want to get this process, considering how difficult it is not only for them but also for their families. And as in example, towards Mexico, we have the law of Ley de Muerte Anticipada, which means the anticipated death, when that is when someone decides to stop having certain medications and just die slowly. And in our position, we believe that letting someone die slowly, slower, and not in a good quality of life is not the answer. And people have the right to have that alternative, not only in legislation, but also in practice. How much time do I have left? Okay. So just to end this argument, there are, just to give an example, around 10 million people who get cancer every year. Most of them sadly don't end up in a good ending, let's say. And by 2040, it is estimated that 29.9 million are gonna get that disease. And considering how slowly or how fast and unpredictable that example precisely is, it is difficult to say that people should just suffer, considering that sometimes their legislations or their countries don't let them have access to certain quality, not only in the medication, but in the process in which they live their illness. So for us in our position, euthanasia is a way of dying with dignity and also giving the people the right to have a choice in which they don't have to die with suffering.
Thank you, Paulina. We will now move on to the opposing team again. And as the other team, you will have now 4 minutes to address your points. And please keep your responses focused on the specific arguments of the fourth team.
Emilio, would you like to take the first 2 minutes?
Yeah. Okay, well, so addressing to the value of human life and how sometimes when you have a terminal illness, you may want to choose another option. Well, euthanasia in this case and the legalization of the same, well, may lead to desensitization, towards death, and this in a whole idea to the society, as well as, well, it may also, by allowing euthanasia to be legal, it may also have an implication on society, yes, to devalue the lives of those who are, for example, elderly, or as you said, which are disabled or are suffering in a certain amount of time, or, well, in a certain range, of course. So yeah, this can also strain relationships with family members, with friends and so on, which might feel pressured by the support of euthanasia, in which, for example, in our case, or if someone has a terminal illness, well, they may feel pressure about euthanasia being legal because they can lose this type of family members, and also, yeah, a close one. And, well, also, if euthanasia will be legalized, it may not be only used for terminal illnesses, as you said, for like cancer or some other type of illnesses, but also people which only don't like how they are living life, or just want to make that decision, for example, by social pressure, or by I don't know, bullying or something else, will also make that type of decision, which of course it's irreversible. So this is one of the biggest things and concerns about euthanasia right now, is that it's irreversible, which will also be tragic, and of course they lose lives, and, well, of course you cannot regret that type of decisions once you are not in here. I don't know if Yana wants to continue.
Thank you. Yeah. I would like to further address the potential for abuse that a legalization of euthanasia would pose to many fields, such as the healthcare system, but also to families, for example. Legal euthanasia could indeed be exploited by unscrupulous individuals or even healthcare systems under financial or societal pressure, which I think is something that we have to consider when we talk about the dignity of human life and the dignity of the people that would like to end their lives. When you were addressing the case from Spain, I do indeed see your point in saying that for this man, it was indeed a helpful decision to allow him to get euthanasia. But at the same time, this is only one single case that we know of. If we think of a system where euthanasia is a daily thing, might become a daily business, it might be something that leads under financial or societal pressure to decisions that people would not take under different circumstances, and that could lead to premature deaths that may not reflect the patient's actual true wishes, especially when seeing that the main group of people, the main group of society that would be concerned by this would be the group of disabled and elderly people. We see that they might already suffer from mental health issues and could then feel pressured to opt for euthanasia, fearing that they would be a burden for their families or for society, and that society would spend too much money on them in the healthcare system.
Thank you, Jana and Emilio, for your response. We will now have the rebuttal from the proposing team, following the counter argument, and you have 4 minutes again for this.
Okay, well, first, I mean, I get Emilio's point about the value of the life, but I don't think that legalizing euthanasia, I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't value the lives of the terminal patients, you know. But I think it's more like that we are helping them to live and die according their wishes, you know, without spending resources to prolong their suffering. In addition of that, I think euthanasia is more like a way to relieve their extreme suffering, because like my partner in favor, Paulina, was saying, in advanced disease like cancer or any condition that cause you extreme or constant pain, I think that in those cases, euthanasia provides a dignified alternative for people that would prefer not to live in continuous suffering, you know? And also about what Jana was saying, it's not only an option for the patient, but it's also an option for their loved ones, because I think that they also suffer by seeing them like pass through such intense pain. And I think allowing someone to choose euthanasia, it will be an act of compassion and respect for their will.
Also, I would like to add to what Christian was saying. It is not exactly true what our partner in this debate, Jana, was mentioning. It is not a single case, considering that in the countries where euthanasia is legal, the rates of people who die by this are extremely low, considering the amount of people who request it. So there is not an evidence of an abuse towards that treatment, considering, for example, in the Netherlands, only around 0.3% to 4.6% of people who are suffering from a terminal illness and through all the deaths in that country receive that treatment. And also putting the same example that we gave with cancer, we have to consider also the equality that there is towards not only access towards healthcare system, but also what it means for their loved ones and for people. In that, I agree, it is a difficult process in which people go through to see that their loved one wants to die. But according to data and evidence and also testimonies, such as the man that I was mentioning, this is not exactly true, considering that in the Netherlands, approximately only 46,000 people are diagnosed with cancer and die of cancer every year. It is important to mention that it is not just one single person. It's 29.9 million people that are estimated towards 2040. So this is a really important issue, and we believe that what in this case the opposition is saying is not taking into account what we have already and what the evidence on the countries that it is legally says.
Thank you, Christian and Paulina, for your arguments. Going back to the opposing team, please provide your rebuttal and counter arguments. And as did the other team, you have 4 minutes for this.
Okay, would you notify me again after 2 minutes so that I can hand over to Emilio? Thank you. So I would like to address one main aspect of what you were mentioning before, which is the long-term vision and perspective on this possible legalization. And if we are already talking about the long term and how we can envision the future, why should we not envision a future in which we work on alternatives to euthanasia rather than just taking it as an easy way out, an easy way that also can turn out as a slippery slope? For example, by improving palliative care, through these advances, we could provide better symptom management and allow people to live their final days with dignity and comfort without actually needing euthanasia and without actually having to pose this big burden on their families, but also themselves. And lastly, since we're already talking about dignity, also the workers in healthcare, the moral dilemma that they are opposed to when having to perform the service of euthanasia can be really conflicting to the actual aim of their job. Many people who work in healthcare may have as their main goal to actually save lives and help people to become healthy. Why not keep these standards instead of saying that euthanasia would be the ideal decision in these cases? Further, I would like to stress that I think psychological support and addressing emotional struggles of terminally ill patients, but also those who feel the need of receiving euthanasia is a main thing that our society and also our healthcare systems would need to work on, which would, of course, pose a financial burden on these institutions. But I think thinking of our society, thinking of our people, this is something that we should be willing to risk instead of choosing the slippery slope.
And well, addressing again to the argument about that it's just not one person who has this terminal illness and that he opted to euthanasia and so on. Well, we cannot use this type of generalization in this case because, well, of course, euthanasia may be not used only when if it is legalized only for like people who have terminal illnesses, as well as we know that we may have misdiagnosis, of course, and or premature misdiagnosis, no, as we know. And for example, in the Mexican social healthcare, we have this in about 5 to 10% of the misdiagnosis of terminal illnesses. So of course, it's something that we need to address, because in those cases, what is the case to have euthanasia, or what is the argument to have this type of decisions when they don't really have the right information? And of course, if euthanasia is legalized, it may also affect to the investments on how healthcare may be advancing in order to, well, improve the quality of life, or maybe have some other solutions rather than euthanasia as treatments or so on, in these cases of the terminal illnesses, as you said before, of course. Well, and this is merely what I have to say.
Jana, do you have anything to add? Actually, the time is up. So thank you, Jana and Emilio. We are now approaching the end of this debate. So both sides have now time for their closing statements. 4 minutes for those. And we will start with the pro side.
Okay.
Okay. No.
Okay, so to begin our closing statement, and also to prove what we were saying at the beginning, we've talked about healthcare, dignity, and different types of terminal illnesses, but it's also important to take into account that it is not a generalization to show data, because this
Sorry,
is
I made a mistake.
studies.
It's 2 minutes, not 4 minutes. Sorry.
Okay. Because this is the evidence that we have, and this is the studies that are going on at the moment. Also, the American Psychological Association says that 60% of the people that had a terminal illness actually 60% of people that had a terminal illness wanted euthanasia, and only 11% actually consider it. So this is also considered not only by different types of people in the medical field, but also in the mental health field. And as we said in the beginning, this is something that gives people the right to choose the way in which they want to die without having to necessarily suffer. And also, as I was saying, it is not a generalization to show data, because we have we put the example of cancer because it is as of right now the illness that affects people around the world the most, as well as amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which affects the nerves and possible of movement. So after living with this with a lot of time, I will just end by saying this. When we talk about euthanasia, we should think about these people as human beings and not only data. We should think about Jose Antonio Arrabal, who lived since 2015 in a bed, who couldn't get up, and their loved ones had to see him suffer, and him to become an activist, saying that he wanted to have this. So this will be the end of our statement, and yeah.
Thank you, the first side, for your closing remarks. And now concluding the opposing side, the floor is yours.
Emilio, would you like to start and then I conclude?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we would like to thank you all for being part of this. And of course, now with euthanasia, we believe that it may help to desensitize to people and society around what the death is, of course. And as we said before, this may also, well, have a lot of bad effects, just not in the people's life, but also in their family and close ones. Also, we have, as we said, misdiagnosis, which should be also part of this discussion. And well, of course, this has a very great implicity in what society is. And of course, even if it's legalized, it will be kind of difficult to also have the correct regulations for this type of procedures.
From my side, I would of course also like to thank everyone for this debate and for sharing your opinions and concerns on this very important, very tense topic with us. I would like to conclude by saying that while the desire to alleviate suffering is really important, euthanasia still presents significant ethical, medical, and social risks that may outweigh its perceived benefits, as we can also reflect on the cases that have been mentioned. Focusing on compassionate care instead, improved mental health support, and respect for life can, in our opinion, offer more ethical alternatives to euthanasia that we wish to focus on in the next years. Thank you.
Thank you for all of our speakers for sharing their perspectives on such a complex and important topic. Euthanasia raises deep questions about autonomy, ethics, and the role of medical professionals, as we could see. And today we've heard very insightful arguments from both sides. To summarize, those in favor of euthanasia argued that individuals who are facing unbearable pain and terminal illness should have the right to choose peaceful and dignified death. Moreover, they emphasized the autonomy of the right to control one's life and the compassion, and that assisted suicide can also be regulated. On the other hand, the opposing team presented compelling points about the sanctity of life and the ethical responsibilities of medical professionals. They argued that legalizing euthanasia could lead down a slippery slope where vulnerable individuals might go down a slippery slope. And they also raised concerns about the potential use in other senses than terminal illnesses. And their main point was that there are alternative focuses on developing other solutions. So in debates like this, it is rarely a definitive right or wrong answer, as the issue is deeply personal and touches fundamental beliefs and values. However, based on the strengths and clarity of the arguments presented today, I'd like to acknowledge the against side as the winner for this debate. And their arguments provided a more comprehensive response to the ethical concerns raised. And thank you again all for all the speakers for sharing your insights. And we hope you leave today with a broader perspective on euthanasia and the ethical challenges behind it. Thank you and have a good day.